in the long run, it doesn't really matter who's the president, what's the regulation. And so that makes, for me, that makes my life much easier. Like, I don't have to worry about the yield curve, the CPI, the Fed cutting the rates. It doesn't, it's like you're in a different system. That's the beauty about Bitcoin. You can take all of your money, all of your energy from this fiat world, which is very corrupted, and you go to another system which is not corrupted.
Awesome. So today I have the pleasure of being joined by Matteo Pellegrini. Matteo, thanks so much for taking the time to join me today.
My pleasure, Stefan. Thanks for having me.
No problem. I'm looking forward to get into it today with you in the conversation here. And where I'd love to start off with, as I do for most of my episodes, is to talk a bit about, the beginning of your Bitcoin journey. So what I'm curious about for yourself is just, a bit of your background and how you actually were introduced to Bitcoin.
Yeah, so my background is mainly in technology companies. My first company I was 19, so I always had some kind of business / company / website, and because of that, I've learned about this guy called Naval Ravikant, which is he created AngelList, like a philosopher, VC, and. So anyway, about Bitcoin, it's so the first time I heard it was like 2012. I remember the price was $5, which I have here. This was one Bitcoin back in the days. Check this out.
Nice.
Huh? Anyway, and I thought it was a scam. And then in 2016 or maybe 2017, so Naval sent this long tweet about blockchains. He didn't even mention Bitcoin. And then I'm like, okay, I know Naval is not a scammer, it's a billionaire, it's a good guy. And why is he talking about this thing, which I thought was a scam? So I think, so I read that tweet in the middle of the night. And I said, okay, next morning, the first thing I have to do is figure out what is this Bitcoin thing of blockchain. And then, then I did that, and then I bought some Bitcoin. I don't know, 1 or 2, I can't even remember. And then what happened is 2017, when it went to 20,000, I figured, this is gonna be, because my background is in technologies. I say, there's gonna be a new Bitcoin, something better, something faster, something cheaper, whatever. And so in 2018, I started buying all kind of shitcoins. Like probably hundreds of them. So I get rid of all my Bitcoins to buy the shitcoins, which I don't know how long you've been in Bitcoin, but 2018 was the beginning of the bear market. So every day the portfolio would go down and down and down. So eventually after 3 months, it's like, I'm done with this. So I went back to my original idea of Bitcoin being a scam. And then I closed the accounts, whatever. And but then on Twitter, I was following, I don't know, maybe Breedlove or Stefan Livera, I don't know who was it. And they talk about this book called The Bitcoin Standard, which was written by an economist. And I'm like, that's interesting, because I study economics in university. I'm like, maybe I should read this book. It's an economist. I'm kind of an economist. Maybe I can learn something. I don't know. So I bought that book. So that must be June 2018.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Obviously I never heard of Austrian economics before. I study, Keynesian economics. And that's when I kind of understood that it's not just a technology, which was my previous understanding. It was like a monetary asset, a monetary system, And that's when I kind of become not a Bitcoin maxi, but I start telling people to buy Bitcoin. I remember Christmas of 2018. I forced my mother to get 1 Bitcoin. It was $5,000. So it was 1,000 times more than this. Yeah. So I went from this to 5,000. Now it's 20 times more. Anyway, so that's the story, and then eventually you become a Bitcoin maxi, start your Bitcoin company.
Yeah, you're well. That's a very interesting story, especially I think Naval has been a very influential figure in the space as well. I know he has interesting opinions, but I think from a theory standpoint, he's been very influential for a lot of people. And it's interesting that you kind of took the journey from first kind of reading his statements and looking into blockchain. And to be fair, I think like most of us, we enter the space without knowing much about it, and then I think most Bitcoiners have a bit of the shitcoining phrase at first, where it's like, okay, yeah, but there's probably these other coins that are better, and like the Facebook to the MySpace type of analogy. But yeah, once you start to dive into it and actually understand how it works, I think that's when thing changes. And so for you, when you first started to actually learn about Bitcoin through, you mentioned the Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean, what really stood out to you in the beginning as being like the value proposition, and that also set it apart from all of the other coins?
Well, it just when I read the book, I just learned that it's not just a technology; it's like a new monetary system. I've learned about Austrian economics, which I never heard before, which kind of makes sense, And so then it makes sense that money should not be inflated away, which obviously was my understanding until basically that book. The inflation is kind of good because it stimulates the economy. You don't want price to go down. Otherwise, people, get, in a way, if the salary goes down, they get depressed. So depression, blah, 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 blah. And so that was the biggest mind shift when I read that book, is that, in order to have like a free market, in order to have a true free market, you need money that is not manipulated, because money is like 50% of all transactions. So if you manipulate the money, you obviously manipulate the entire market. And then you don't have a free market. You kind of have you think you do, but you don't really. And so that was the biggest kind of eye-opening from that book. In terms of the other ones, I never thought they were money. I never thought it was money. It's like token projects, kind of like fundraising for companies. So like I'm fundraising right now for my own company. And you have all this paperwork, it's very lengthy process. Kind of some days I'm like, well, maybe I should launch a token. Obviously, it's not a good idea, but in a way, it kind of makes sense that you can just buy the token. You don't have to sign any contract. If you trust the issuer of the token, obviously there's a lot of trust, unlike in Bitcoin. And so, yeah, for me, the other tokens have never been like, alternative money. They're mostly scams or bad projects, or, they pretend to be decentralized when they're not decentralized. I don't see, sometimes I get into arguments with people like these oracles, like, what is it called? Chainlink. They have oracles. I don't know if you ever heard of those.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And I'm like, how does the oracle know that the data is correct? Oh, you use 5 oracles and then you have reached consensus. Okay, but how do they know the data is correct? They don't know, because they have to rely on somebody providing the data. So then you have to trust the person providing the data. So the trust, it's always at some layers, basically. In these blockchains, there's always some trust required to make it work. And in Bitcoin, there is no trust required, which is the kind of the novelty, in a way, that you don't have to trust. You can just verify your blockchain. You can verify everything by yourself. So that's the very unique thing about Bitcoin versus all the other shit coins.
Yeah, agreed. And I think, you made an interesting and funny point there as well, which I think is a good way to distinguish it. You mentioned about how you're fundraising for your company right now, and maybe just be easier to launch a token for your company and fundraise in that way. And I think, I think it is a good way to kind of analogize the difference between, I think, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is like Bitcoin is actually decentralized, and the other ones are. I know, for example, Sailor is like analogizes between it being more of a commodity versus the other ones are essentially securities, right? Like things like
Right.
Chainlink, Solana. They're essentially companies that raise money for an ICO or whatever, and then use that money to build out their quote unquote project, whatever that may be. But it's a good way for people who are listening who maybe don't understand. It's like, yeah, you have one, they're not the same thing. And I'm not a big fan of the other cryptocurrencies, but I think at least that kind of makes it easy to understand. Like you have a security in one hand, which is like very risky, subject to, like you mentioned, trusting the company, trusting the people, versus something that's completely decentralized and completely out of the hands of anybody.
Yes, yes, yes. Exactly. That's in theory, you can have. I could issue a token, and then people will buy. And so the problem, I think, is that it's easy to abuse it. That's really the real problem. Like, I could I could then inflate the supply. How would you find out? That's the problem with these tokens. Like, in theory, they might even be working, but in practice, because humans are like greedy and flawed, and eventually somebody in the company said, well, why don't we increase the supply, and we have to hire more
Mm.
developers, let's give them some tokens. And that's why this thing always they always end up in the same predicament. Like,
Mm.
they get hacked, or the supply goes to, like, look at Ethereum, right? Like, they change the consensus, they change what are they change? Proof of work, proof of stake, the supply inflation. They did. It's not something that you can really rely upon. Maybe it's a good
Mm.
experiment. Maybe it's an interesting experiment, but it's not. I wouldn't put all my money in Ethereum or Solana or anything else. But I could. I mean, I have all my money in Bitcoin. It's like it's actually makes my life much easier because I don't have to look at stocks. Because before
Yeah.
Bitcoin, I was buying stocks, right?
Mm.
It's like, oh, the new product, the new CEO, the new president of the United States that changed the rules. It's like there's always something going on, and you have to keep track of all that stuff. With Bitcoin, I mean, in a way, Bitcoin, it's also in a way impacted by U.S. elections for sure. But in the long run, it doesn't really matter who's the president, or what's the regulation. And so that
Yeah.
makes, for me, that makes my life much easier. Like, I don't have to worry about the yield curve, the CPI, the Fed cutting the rates. It doesn't. It's like you're in a different system. That's the beauty about Bitcoin.
Mm.
You can take all your money, all of your energy from this fiat world, which is very corrupted, and you go to another system which is not corrupted.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's very well said. I think I agree with that, and it's a bit like you said. It's of course important to be updated on what's happening, and especially for Bitcoin, more from a geopolitical standpoint. But over the long run, it doesn't really matter. I was actually having a conversation with another Bitcoiner, and it's like, for me, Bitcoin is very analogous to the internet in a way where it's like you may have doubters in the beginning, but it's a technology that has like found its way, and it's going to get adopted over the long run. It's just a matter of like how fast and how quickly that will happen. But I think for most people who have studied it, it's not really a matter of when it will get adopted, or not a matter of if it will get adopted, more a matter of when. But what I'm also curious about from your perspective, because you said you had an economics background in university, I can imagine that when you stumbled upon Bitcoin, especially when you read the Bitcoin Standard, which is Austrian economics, were you taught any Austrian economics in school? Was it, or what was some of the biggest things that
Never
for
heard
you
of it.
were like?
No,
What were
never
some of the
heard of.
biggest like mind shifts that you had to then make?
Um, no, it's I never heard of Austrian economic once in my 3 years that I study economics at the university. Maybe I don't. I was, when you're 19, you don't pay much attention, but pretty sure it was never mentioned. I should check the curriculum one of these days to see if they actually do it. But well, the main thing is that the money should be out of the hands of government. That's really the main thing about Austrian economics versus Keynesian economics. In Keynesian economics, the money is controlled by the central banks / the government, and then it should the debt a government being in debt is not bad because they can just inflate the money away, and so they can just kind of do the programs like welfare, that kind of stuff, which then can be repaid in the future with lesser valued dollars. And which kind of sounds good in theory. The problem is that if you always pay the price. So somebody sent a tweet one time, was very good. Like if you can't print money, you get. So if a bank, for example, does fractional reserve, eventually they're gonna have a bank run because people don't trust the bank. They're gonna get the money, and there is not enough money, so everybody wanna get the money, and so you have these bank runs. If you have fiat money, you don't have bank runs because you just print the money. So you can always have the money in the bank. But there is another kind of bank. Now I can't remember exactly what was the tweet. But the bank run in a way is inflation. It's a zero-sum game. When you think about it, it's kind of a zero. You can't just print money with no consequence. There's always somebody paying the consequence. And, you just get inflation, and, people can buy grocery, or, they have to work 2 jobs, and then they don't spend much time with the family, and then society started kind of collapsing because, kids are raised like by themselves, and then it's more likely they become criminals, more divorce rate, blah, blah. All these things are kind of in a way of kind of a consequence of fiat money. There's a website, I'm sure you've seen it, like WTF happened in 1971.com.
Yeah.
And it's all this chart that like flat until 1971 or 1972, the 70s, and then they all start spiking. Actually, I was reading a book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's not a big corner or anything, but he was talking about, like, once you're a big corner, once you know what happened in the 70s, if you read, you'll find it in any books. So in this book, he basically said why all the lawyers in New York are Jewish, which Jewish are not a lot of people, right? And it's like, because in the 70s, because Jewish lawyers before the 70s were like the lowest of the rank. And they would get whatever comes to the door, right? And before the 70s, corporate lawyers were the least paid. There was no money in corporate law. Nobody wanted to do corporate lawyers because there was no money. And then he said, then after the 70s, because of the money, the debt became cheap, it was possible to do takeovers, meaning one company could buy another company. And then you need a lawyer to do this kind of stuff. And so all the Jewish lawyer, which used to be like the least of they become super rich because of fiat money by accident. And I'm like, that's another chart that should be on that website. Maybe it is there. Like the amount of corporate takeovers in the United States was almost zero before the 70s. And after was like rampant because of money became cheap. So people could just leverage their balance sheet and buy other companies. And so in Austrian economics, you don't have that because the money is outside of the government, so they cannot print it, and it's a free market money. Could be gold, could be Bitcoin, could be anything really. Although you have good money and bad money, but I mean, even gold, it's people think gold is good, but for gold is not good because you don't know. So here's the problem with gold. In case somebody listening here is a gold bug, they say, well, we used to have a gold standard where the money was fixed. Well, number one, that's not true because gold was dug out of the ground every single year. So you still had inflation back then. Secondly, in order to have a fixed monetary system, you need to be able to audit the money at any point. You need, okay, how much money are in the system? Let's say 21 million Bitcoins. Anybody can go and audit that. If you don't know how much money are in circulation, then by definition, you cannot have a gold standard.
Mm-hmm.
So even today in 2025, right? We have no idea how much gold there is. Like nobody knows. Mm-hmm. So now this gold bug, they want me to believe that 400 years ago, there was no internet, there was no technology. It's like very ancient. Like you want me to believe that 400 years ago, they know exactly how much gold was around, and then you can allocate. No, of course not. So basically, even with gold, which obviously is, it's physical, you can move it easily, blah, 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 blah. You still wouldn't have. So basically, Bitcoin is actually writing a book right now about Bitcoin, kind of Bitcoin. And one of the chapters is like, we've never been here. Like we never had once in the history of humankind a money that is mathematically fixed and it's auditable by anybody, anytime.
Yeah.
So anybody can know the exact supply of the money. This has never happened before. And so that's kind of what's special about Bitcoin and and why all the Austrian economists, they kind of love Bitcoin, because it's the first time you can have Austrian economics. Because if you don't have some like fixed money, you cannot have Austrian economics.
Yeah.
And again, even with gold, you don't have that fixed supply. And so, yeah, that's what's so special.
No, and it's very interesting the way you explain it, and I think very valuable for my listeners as well, because it's important, I think, to understand that, and one, to understand, how you mentioned having money that's outside of the state, which for a while was gold, or was one of the options to do that. And now, we have Bitcoin, which, is essentially infinitely better because of its ability, like you said, to be audited, because it's digital, because it's easily divisible, and all those things. And so, yeah, for my listeners, I definitely also recommend reading the Bitcoin Standard, because I think Seyfettin does a great way of explaining it and explaining how it ties into Bitcoin. And for me, what's also interesting then is your next step. So you kind of, you have this economic background, you read the Bitcoin Standard. So when did you go from, just being interested from more of an intellectual side to then actually going forward and actually creating a company in the space, which is Orange Pill app?
Well, that's so the story of Orange Pill app. It's so I became a Bitcoin master, let's say in 2020, and then I went to Bitcoin Miami 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first time, I met Bitcoiners in real life, which was, if you become a Bitcoiner, eventually you become a little lonely because nobody wants to listen to you. They think you're crazy, your conspiracy theories, blah, 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 blah. And then you're like, okay, but, you're so obsessed about this subject. Nobody wants to listen to you, so you become lonely, which I think is why we spend so much time on Twitter or podcast. It's like a coping mechanism for loneliness for Bitcoiners. Anyway, so I went to Bitcoin Miami.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is amazing. All these people, strangers that I met, the energy is great. Everybody's friendly. Nobody thinks I'm crazy, obviously. And then I went back to LA, and I was like, okay, let's go find Bitcoiners in LA. There's got to be some Bitcoiners in LA, right? 10 million people. And so eventually I found a meetup. I drove to this meetup 1 hour because in LA everything's 1 hour drive.
Mm.
And then I went to this meetup. This was like October, November of 2021. So right at the top of the previous bull run. And I went to this Bitcoin meetup, and half of the people there were not in Bitcoin. Like NFT, Ethereum, Solana. And then I was like, wow, it's like, what a waste of time, you know? So as I was driving back, I start wondering, maybe there's another way to find local Bitcoiners that I don't know of. Because of course, on Twitter, you don't know where people are. Nosso didn't exist, but even on Nosso, you don't know where the people are, right? Maybe you're chatting with somebody that is your neighbor, but you're never gonna know that. The meetup, again, it was not good. And so I'm like, okay, what's the solution to this problem that I have? And then eventually, there was no solution. So eventually, through a friend that told me about a dating app, and then he told me, yeah, I'm going to make a dating app for very active people. Like if you're a surfer, you want to date somebody that's surfer.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's interesting. That's how you find local people that have your interest. With an app, they have geolocation, profiles, and a chat. And that's how I got the idea of Orange Pill app, you know. So it's a location-based social network. So basically the pitch is very simple. Like when I tell people, I say, do you like to meet Bitcoiners? If the answer is yes, that's what we do. So if you want to meet Bitcoiners, you know, we have now 15,000 members all over the world. We have, so basically we have events, we have merchants, and we have people. So everything is local, so that you can think about like 3 circles, right? Like Bitcoin, social, and local. And you put them together, and that's Orange Pill up at the middle. So everything that it's about going offline, basically. It's about, instead of spending all of your time scrolling on Twitter or Nosso or YouTube, whatever, which is fine up to a point, you should find a local Bitcoiners and go and hang out with them and, you know, have a chat or talk about whatever. You know, I have a meetup, so I have my own meetup. I do every week. I think I'm the only, I'm the only person in the world that have a weekly meetup. Saturday morning at 9.
Okay.
9 a.m. on Saturday morning, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, sometimes, now we have like 10 people, regulars. And sometimes we don't even talk about Bitcoin for an hour. Like we talk about Tesla or real estate. And I realized the other day is like, you know, in life, if you look at your friends, right? They're kind of like you. That's why they're friends. They have the same interests, or they have the same culture, or the same mentality, or the same background. They have something that is similar. And that's why they become your friends. And then in Bitcoin, it's like, now that I know this person is a Bitcoin maxi, let's call it, because he's downloaded this app, you have to pay to use the app, right? So we filter all the noise, because I didn't want to recreate the problem with the meetup. So when I realized, okay, you have the app, location, profiles, chat, blah, 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 blah. So how do I prevent this app from becoming the equivalent of the meetup with all the shit on it? So it's okay, I'm going to put it behind the paywall. So it's completely paywall. You cannot do anything if you don't pay. It's like, it's only $3. So it's very cheap, but it's not zero. The problem is when it's zero.
Yeah.
And so anyway, the other day was at my meetup, and we didn't talk about Bitcoin almost the entire meetup. It's very casual. It's very like we got breakfast. And I was like, you know, this is like my friends now that I know they have my mentality, my principle. They subscribe to the same ideology in a way, like less government, more freedom, more self-sovereignty and all these things that Bitcoin is like. So once I know you're on on this side of the aisle, then we can talk about anything else. That would have to be Bitcoin. And that's what's cool about, finding local Bitcoiners, like, or meeting Bitcoiners. It's like you kind of know already where they stand on a lot of things, so you trust them. So, for example, there's a story that I went to this conference in Madeira, which is an island in the middle of the ocean. You probably know the island.
Yeah.
Have you been there?
I haven't, but I actually wanted to go to the conference last year there, but this is pretty close to where I am. But
right. So I went to this conference, and then I realized my flight was landing super late. The Airbnb would not be up at 1 a.m. to give me the keys. And like, I don't know anybody on the island, never been on the island. And I'm like, where do I get these bloody keys to get? So on Orange Pillar, we had this group chat for each event. So each event has its own group chat. So there was a group chat for the conference. So I messaged, hey guys, can anybody go get the keys for me and put it somewhere where I can find it? And then, somebody that I never met in my life went to get the keys, put it somewhere. It took me like half an hour to find it in the middle of the night, but I found it. And I'm like, you see, this is what it's all about, right? You can trust people, even though you never met them before, with your keys of the Airbnb that you have to stay, And I could end up being like homeless for one night because, the guy stole the keys and maybe who the hell knows. But that's what's so cool about kind of like Bitcoin. It's more like a filter when it comes to like personal relationship. It's like, oh, I know you've been through what I've been through. You read all the books. I mean, you've been ostracized by probably your family and your friend. It's kind of like, so I have some friends that have been in war. They've been to Afghanistan, and I'm like, and when they meet somebody else that have been deployed to war, they're immediately friendly, right? Even then, there might be Republican or Democrats or black and white, but it's like you've been through such an extreme experience. Now, obviously, learning about Bitcoin is not like going to war, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's like a filter. It's like a filter. And we need filter because time is scarce, right? So you cannot talk to 100 people to find out that 2 could be your friends. You don't want to do that. Maybe when you're young, it's different, right? But once you have family and, a job, you don't have time. And so you try to find filters, like, it could be the church, or it could be a friend of a friend that tell you, oh, this guy's cool, you should talk to this guy. Or in this case, it could be Bitcoin. And mathematically, it's almost like 99%. If you meet somebody that's a Bitcoin maxi, so it's already a friend. And so the problem is that you can't find them because it's not like you go to the store and somebody has Bitcoin maxi on their forehead, right? And so maybe they have the laser eyes. But so that's what the app does. It just enables you to find local Bitcoiners.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great idea, and I'm also a user on it. I think it's something that's needed, especially as you mentioned in the Bitcoin/crypto space. A lot of the meetups can tend to be a bit grifty, and some people come up with not the right intentions. So I do like the ability that it has to filter that, like you said, through also the paywall. What are some of the biggest lessons that you've had so far when running the company?
Biggest lesson? Geez. Well, one thing is for sure, like Bitcoiners are very, number one, very, very generous. So for example, there was a story where, so there's like, again, you have to get a membership to get into the app. And then there is like a membership that's called GigaChat. Because like the most expensive membership you can get in Bitcoin only is like 300 sats, or it used to be 500 sats, like 500,000 sats. And then one day I wake up and check my emails and I see 2 GigaChat membership, which is very rare, right?
Mm.
And then I see the same email. I was like, how this must be a scam. Somebody found a way to game the app. So I emailed the guy, say, hey, like what's going on here? Like you have 2 membership. I said, oh yes, like give me a phone call, give me a call, I can explain. So I called the guy. He's in France, he's keen on the Alps. And he's like,
Mm.
well, I bought a new iPhone and I was transferring iCloud to one iPhone and another. So somehow he bought two membership, the most expensive ones. I said, okay, okay, that's interesting, good to know, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, I'm going to refund you one of the membership because, you already bought the most expensive one, which doesn't give you anything else, by the way. It's just a way kind of to support the company.
Mm.
And it's like, no, I keep half of the extra one because I want to support the company. I said, okay, that's very kind of you. And so then I hang up the phone and then I had another call. And then by the time my other call ended, I went on my email to find the guy email to get a refund. And he has sent me an email saying, you know what? I thought about this. Keep all the money.
Hmm.
And I'm like, well, that's amazing. I'm like, this would never happen in the fiat world.
No.
Like if you by accident buy 2 Netflix subscription for $10, whatever they go for, you're gonna get on the phone and say, give me the money back, you scammers, And in Bitcoin, people would just give you hundreds of dollars, just to support the company. The mission, really, not the company. It's more about the mission. So yeah, the reviews, like, sometimes I read the reviews that we get. They look fake. That's so good. There's like, if I didn't know this, like if I'm a regular person, say, well, this must be AI generated reviews. There's like all 5 stars, like, hundreds of 5-star reviews. And so that's one thing I've learned is, there's a lot of people that are like, I don't know if they're generous or they just want to support the mission of connecting local Bitcoiners because they realize that Bitcoin, some Bitcoiners don't like this, but Bitcoin is a social construct. It doesn't really exist. It only exists in our mind. And then if we stop believing in Bitcoin just becomes 0 and 1, right? And so if you grow the network, especially like in person, because in person is more powerful than online, right? If you grow that network, by definition, you also increase the strength of the Bitcoin network, right?
Mm.
And so maybe that's what they figure out, like, if Orange Pill app is successful, that also make Bitcoin, the network, the asset, whatever you want to call it, also successful. And yeah, so we go, 15,000 members now with, everybody has to pay, so that's another crazy thing because there's never been a social network with a paywall from the beginning. Never existed once. I don't think it will ever exist because Bitcoiners, I think they intuitively understand if you're not paying, you are the product.
Yeah.
And so, for example, like, there's a monthly membership for $3, and then there's a lifetime membership for $100. So 33 times more. And people tell me, oh, I hate subscription. I'm going to pay $100 for an app when every app is free, right? So they pay me $100 instead of paying $3 because they hate the subscription model. And it's a very unique world in a way that that makes this thing possible. There's a lot of generosity. I mean, there's people that find jobs through the app. They literally, there's group chats where you can, there's like more than 1-to-1, and people lose job and somebody just find a job through the app. Somebody got married actually through the app.
Wow.
I never get invited to the wedding, which is upsetting, but they got married. But at least they say thank you to me. Whatever, it's fine. Yes, so somebody got married. There's they find, you find people got hired. friends, like the best. Like I hear every day, oh, my best friend, I found it through your app. Thank you very much. Yeah. So yeah, so that's all these kind of stories, and now actually, I don't know when this podcast will be live, but we're actually launching a wallet inside the app.
Okay.
So here's what I've learned. Actually, that's something interesting that I've learned. So again, to use Orange Pill app, you need to get a membership, right? So you will think that people that use Orange Pill app are the most advanced Bitcoiners, that they're more down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And it's not true. I found out that 80% of the people on Orange Pill app, they've never done a Lightning transaction ever.
Oh,
Some
wow.
don't even know what is a Lightning network. And somehow they know about Orange Pill app, they paid, but they don't even know what's the Lightning network. Which is why eventually I figured, okay, I can't tell everybody go download this wallet, get the alien URL, put in the app, because you can zap people on the app, you can send Satoshi to one another. And I'm like, I'm just gonna build a wallet inside the app, will be live. Actually, it's kind of live already. And so everybody by default, they have a wallet inside the app. They don't have to download an extra app, which they don't even do it because they don't even know what's Lightning Network.
Yeah.
So now with Orange Pill app, you're automatically on the Lightning Network. You can send and receive Bitcoin, like no cost, instant payment. I mean, the Lightning Network, it's amazing, but somehow most people don't know about it, even after 7 years.
That's very interesting. Yeah, because I would assume also that the people that are on the Orange Pill app are, like you said, more Bitcoiners that are probably been in Bitcoin for some time, are pretty advanced. So it's interesting to hear that a lot of them, haven't really utilized like the Lightning Network or maybe hardware wallets or things like that. The wallet within Orange Pill app, is it already live, or what are the plans there?
So it's live on the web app. So the web app is web.orangepillapp.com, and it's almost live. By the time this podcast is out, unless it's today, it's gonna be live on iOS and Android.
Okay.
And it's like super simple. You can just zap other username. You don't even have to get the address. Or you can zap somebody outside of the app. Like it's a fully fledged wallet.
Okay.
And yeah, it's I don't know if you play with it on the web app, but it's very fast.
I haven't gotten the opportunity to play with it on the web app, but I know, especially Lightning wallets, I think are more and more in need, and I think the ability to integrate them, kind of like you're doing, into social medias and other apps. Like I know Nostr also has some embeddability with Lightning wallets and things like that. So I definitely see that that's a great vision for the app. Have you had any feedback yet from it? Like have users been?
Yeah, everybody loves it. I've been using Lightning Network since the beginning, pretty much.
Yeah.
I remember when like half of the transaction would fail. It was really bad at the beginning.
Yeah.
And now it's like almost impossible to get a transaction fail, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And I've been using all the wallets, you name it. I've used every single Lightning Network wallet. And so I've kind of like stole from all the wallets, like the best part, and put it all in one wallet. So it's kind of, I told my developers, like, if this is not the best wallet ever, we're not launching it. So you better make sure it's the best wallet, which, maybe I'm biased, but so far people are like, this is like the best. It's so fast. It's so easy to, there's no like verified this, verified, like, the wallet that makes you, because I guess the problem with the wallets also is like, wallets should not exist as a separate app in a way, because it's like you can just integrate in Nostr or Orange Pill app or other Bitcoin apps that you already use. Like wherever you buy Bitcoin, they obviously have an app, and you can just use the app to tap people. So, And I think the wallet is like they're like it's the early industry where the people that need to build the infrastructure, and somebody that's not exactly like a product guy. Oh yeah, we should make a wallet, and you can tell it's not exactly thought of. Even so, for
Yeah.
example, Wallet of Satoshi, which is probably the most popular wallet in the world, there's a lot of things that are not exactly state of the art, let's say. So our
Yeah.
wallet is more state of the art in terms of like the way it looks, the way it works, the speed of it.
Okay. Very cool. Well, yeah, I'm excited to give it a try and see how it works. Because yeah, there's a lot of wallets out there. I think from a UI perspective, I think there is indeed a lot left to be desired, especially as it relates to the Lightning Network. But what is your vision for Orange Pill app? Like in the next few years, is it just hone in on the mission that you have now and continue to expand it to more Bitcoiners, or do you see it developing into other directions as well?
Actually, there's one cool thing that we're gonna be able to do with the wallet that you cannot do with any other wallet. Excuse me, because we have the geolocation, right? Now, geolocation is approximate, so we don't know where you are. We just know roughly where you are. You're gonna be able to say from the app, zap everyone in country or in city.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say there is a earthquake in, I don't know, Boston. And then people like to see you, like in Los Angeles, there were these fires, right? People get
Yeah.
lost their house, they lost everything, whatever. You can be like in Japan and say, zap everyone in Los Angeles with one click. And you don't even have to ask them, please give me your invoice, give me your URL. You can just zap people. Like I call them geo zapping, which is very cool. You can also do for marketing. Let's say you have a restaurant and you just started accepting Bitcoin. You can then go into the app and say, zap everybody in the city that the restaurant is it. And also you can add a message. Come to restaurant Zimmermann, 20% off if you're paying Bitcoin. And only the people in that city will get that message and zap. No, the best way to get somebody attention is when you pay them, right?
Yeah.
Like if I send you some sats, you're gonna check, oh, who's this and what if there is a message, you're gonna read that message. So that's gonna unlock a lot of use cases that also of course the other worlds cannot have that because they don't have the geolocation piece. But in terms of the Orange Pill app roadmap, actually, now that the wallet is live, we're gonna have at some point this year we're building a ticketing platform.
Okay, cool.
So all the conference, you can buy and sell tickets on the app.
Very cool.
Yes. Also, you can have a meetup and say, okay, if you want to come to my meetup, you have to pay 1,000 sats, whatever, to do an extra filtering if you want. Or you can say like, I'm having a dinner with my friends and I want, you have to contribute to come to the dinner. So the RSVP costs $10, let's say. And you can just, and let's say if you have a balance on your Orange Pill wallet, you just click once and that's it. So you don't even, so Bitcoin wins when it goes in the background.
Yeah.
When you don't even know you're using Bitcoin, that's when it really wins. So right now, if I want to send you some sats, I have to talk to you and I have to ask you, give me an invoice or give me your LNU address. We have to communicate. Then the invoice expires after 1 hour, which I don't understand why it's not longer, but maybe there's some security reason. Oh, the invoice expired, give me another one. And then I have to find my wallet, and then maybe I don't have enough sats, maybe I have to open a channel. All of this, it's bad. It's really bad. Like you don't win money if you do this stuff. You win when I can go on Orange Pill app, let's say, I know your username, and I just click. What? One click, send the money, that's it. And then you get a message, you got Bitcoin, And that's it. That's how you win. It's not like send me an invoice, send me an URL, blah, 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 blah. Let's open a channel. Oh, I don't have enough balance. I understand like, not your keys, not your coin. I understand that in theory, it's okay. In practice, it's not how it's not how Bitcoin became mainstream, right? And also, if it's a Lightning wallet, you can have $100. Like, it's not like, obviously don't keep all your money there, but keep $100 and then just click, and you zap people, and then it's super fast. Actually, it's faster than Venmo, and also it's borderless. Like you can send, like I can send money to somebody in North Korea. You can't do it with Venmo or PayPal. You can only do it with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And and so that's that's the vision. Is like, you're gonna have the networking part of Orange Lab, then you have the wallet part, and then you have the ticketing platform part. That's kind of the big vision.
Yeah, that's great. And I love what you said there, that I think Bitcoin, because I agree with you, there's a lot of usability issues with Bitcoin at the moment, especially if you use it more on a day-to-day basis. So I'm excited to see how. I'm excited to test out the wallet myself, and when the ticketing platform comes live, to give that a try as well. Another topic that I wanted to quickly cover, I know we don't have too much time here, but I wanted to get your input on this, because you did something that I think was really fascinating. I saw on Twitter, where you essentially opened up a few different wallets with a small amount of Bitcoin and gave the seed phrases to different AI models, which I thought that was a super, super interesting experiment. So I'd love to hear a bit about your thoughts on AI, because I know that's something you're quite knowledgeable in, and the intersection of Bitcoin as well, and how you see that kind of playing out.
We should check the wallets right now, live. Let's see if anybody stole them.
That'd be great.
Let's see. Grok didn't steal. ChatGPT, no, still there. Yeah,
everything's still there.
Yeah, so the way I got this idea is because of DeepSeek, which is a Chinese model, and obviously it's everything tracked by the Chinese government. I was like, and I wonder, how do you kind of like a honey pot, like how do you trap them? Because obviously everything is read by somebody. All the data, there's some human. Obviously it's not one. It's like 1,000 people reading all the messages. Like, I wonder what happens if I give them a wallet. I should have put more Bitcoin, to be honest. I only put like I don't know, 10,000 sats, because somehow I thought that's enough, but in reality, it should be more. And also, it would be cool to see if the AI itself would steal it.
Yeah.
And maybe I should redo it at some point with more Bitcoin in a wallet. But I mean, AI is going to change everything. Obviously, it's already changing everything. Like my developers, they, I hired a new developers recently, and he's like an AI developer. Like he learned to code with AI. And so in a way, it's kind of faster than my old school developer, which has very good developers. But because they're like older, they obviously use AI too, but the new guy is like almost like faster, which is amazing, because he's only been coding for like 2 years instead of 20.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Bitcoin and AI, I think, if the AI ever became sentient, they're not going to go to JP Morgan to open a bank account, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't think they can have bank accounts. So, and they're gonna be needed, and also they wouldn't use money that humans control, I don't think. So I think if the AI became sentient, it's quite likely that it's gonna use Bitcoin. And now people are gonna ask, well, why would they need to get paid? I'm like, because they need compute power. Like if you became sentient, like humans, we want resources to live, to buy a house, buy food. To live, you need resource, right? And if the AI became sentient, it would be the same thing. They will want to live, they will want to achieve something. And in order to achieve something, they will need to have resources, which in this case would be like compute power, cheap, access to the GPUs from NVIDIA or whatever. And yeah, I mean, to me, it's very obvious that they're going to be using Bitcoin because it's the most neutral form of money that exists. And it's also like machine-based money. Like it's software, basically. It's not,
Yeah.
it's like Bitcoin is really software. And so if I'm a software, because AI is also software, why wouldn't I use a Bitcoin to transact? And see, so yeah, to me, I was actually thinking the other day that I was actually thinking this because you could have AI without internet. You don't need the internet to have AI, right? But you cannot have Bitcoin without the internet because you can send transactions, right? Because you need to now. I know some people say, well, in Africa, you can send Bitcoin with a text message. I'm like, no, you send, they don't understand that the text message go to somebody with an internet access, and then they made the transaction for you, and then they send you back a message. So if you don't have internet, you cannot use the Bitcoin, obviously, because the blockchain only lives online. But you could use AI offline, obviously. You can just download a model in your computer and use it offline. And I was thinking, in a way, AI might be more impactful than Bitcoin because if you don't have to use another technology, like if you think about it, what are the most fundamental technology the humans ever invented? Like fire, the wheel, language, that's thousand of the electricity. So what is more important, fire or the electricity? Obviously fire, because without fire, you don't get the electricity. And now without electricity, you don't get computers. So electricity is more important than computers, right? Now, without computers, you don't get Google, let's say. So computers are more important than Google and so on. And now without Google, you don't get YouTube. You see?
Yeah.
So I had this thought, maybe this should be a tweet. I don't have time. Like you can have AI without internet. So AI is going to become more impactful than the internet itself. But because you cannot have Bitcoin without internet, then Bitcoin will be less impactful than the internet or AI. So if you look at these three technologies, internet, Bitcoin, and AI, which one depends on the other? And so I had this thought, but in any case, it's not like Bitcoin it's not a big deal. Obviously, it's a huge deal. But I think AI, in 100 years from now, also AI is already mainstream, more than Bitcoin, right? Like way more than Bitcoin. Like they have 300, like ChatGPT has 300 million users a day, something like that. No, Bitcoin doesn't have, like I know this because it's my job, there's the Bitcoin max in the world, like it's probably 1 million. ChatGPT max is like hundreds of million. So, but yeah, so AI is going to be a big deal, obviously. It's probably going to be the biggest deal ever, most likely. If we get to AGI, that's, it's another story. I don't know if we can get there, but there's a philosophical argument that, how do we get intelligence to begin with? What is intelligence? How do we get it? Does it come from God? Does it come from evolution? If it comes from God, then we're never going to get to AGI. So I have a tweet that went viral. It's like, if God exists, we're never going to get to AGI. Because if God exists, then means we got intelligence because we're created by God, which is what I believe personally. And so that means it also would be the first time that humans can create less intelligent creatures, let's say. It's never happened that a less intelligent creature created a more intelligent. This has never happened in history. And so if humans create AGI or ASI, that would be the first time that a lesser intelligence organism created a more intelligent than themselves organism. So the odds are not good, if you ask me, that we ever get to AGI.
Mm-hmm.
But even if we don't get to AGI, AI is still like a big deal, still going to change everything.
Yeah, agreed. I think we're already seeing it impact a lot of areas of life, and it's also pretty early still in terms of the general scope of things. So yeah, fascinating conversation, and excited to follow the developments there as well. But I know we're out of time, so I just wanted to give you the open mic right now to just plug anything you'd like, where people can find you. Obviously, the Orange Pill app I'll also include in the show notes, but anything else you would like to mention?
If you like spicy tweets, you can follow me at Matteo Pellegrini, MatteoPelleg. That's my Twitter handle. It's very spicy stuff. And then orangeville.com. You can download the app on App Store or Google Play Store. Now there's actually a web app too. Or you can go to the website orangeville.com, and that's about it.
Awesome. Well, Matteo, I appreciate you and thank you for the time. I thought it was an interesting conversation, and I'm sure my listeners will find the same.
Thank you, Stephan. Thank you for having me.